For coming. This is Delivering Knowledge, Implementing Mail-Based Interlibrary Loan Services with Mike Fernandez, who is from Sul Ross State University. I have my little spiel. Does someone want to close the back door? Thanks, great. Okay, so welcome to this session of 2024 Northwest Interlibrary Loan and Resource Sharing Conference. Today's date is September 18th, 2024. This session is titled Delivering Knowledge, Implementing Mail-Based Interlibrary Loan Services, and will be presented by Mike Fernandez of Sul Ross State University. My name is Katie Wallace, and I'm the convener for this session. Please let us know if you can't hear or see the shared screen. This session is being recorded with permission from the presenters. We plan to make these recordings available once captions have been added. Expect an email from Whova when the recordings have been posted about 3 weeks after the conference. We will take questions from the room and from virtual attendees on Whova. Our virtual colleagues should post questions on the Whova Q&A tab, and don't forget to upvote your favorites. After the session, please complete the survey to enter our prize contest. If anyone in this room is logged into Whova, please remember not to start the presentation on your device. And now I will turn over the session to our presenter.
Hello. Yes, my name is Mike Fernandez, and I am a librarian at Sul Ross State University. Like many librarians in this day and age, I certainly wear many hats. I came in as our systems librarian. I'm now our ILL coordinator, and I'm now also kind of in charge of our new physical library location that we opened on one of our satellite campuses in Eagle Pass, Texas. And we'll go into that on the next slide. But also like many librarians, I don't get to exchange these hats out very often. They're all just kind of stacked on top of each other. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our experience with the development and implementation of a pilot program that we call the Direct Mail Program that we are using to provide mail-based interlibrary loan services to our remote and distance education students. Now, when I say remote, I really do mean the student, staff, and faculty that are located on our satellite campuses. And so I will go to the next slide. So you can see here, Sul Ross State University, 4 campuses, 1 university. Our main campus is located in scenic Alpine, Texas, a small town of about 6,000 people. Nestled between the Chisos and Davis Mountains ranges. We're at about an elevation of about 4,400, so it's actually pretty high in Texas, and so we see some much nicer weather up there than we do in most parts of the state. Certainly, much nicer than Eagle Pass and my hometown of Laredo, which is a little bit down south on the border, where we really just kind of have 3 seasons: a very hot summer, about 5 days of spring, and a winter where we pretend that 45 and 50-degree days are sub-zero temperatures. And you can see here that our 3 satellite campuses are located along the border in Southwest Texas. And so we've got the Sul Ross campus in Del Rio, the Sul Ross campus in Uvalde, and the Sul Ross campus in Eagle Pass. Now, each of the campuses in the what we refer to collectively as the Rio Grande campuses, so Del Rio, Uvalde, and Eagle Pass, we refer to collectively as the Rio Grande campuses. On the Rio Grande campuses, the Sul Ross campuses are actually leased buildings on the local regional community college. And that is Southwest Texas Junior College. And so we'll go to the next slide. So in Eagle Pass, for example, on the Southwest Texas Junior College campus, we lease 2 buildings from the community college where the Sul Ross campus is located. So a little bit about Rio Grande College campuses. We have a very large non-traditional student population, They're all, of course, commuter campuses, and courses are offered in person, online, in different modalities. Um, so um, I'll go to the next slide. Um, so what was the problem here? What kind of led to the development of our direct mail program? Well, the university, Sul Ross State University, and Southwest Texas Junior College had a memorandum of understanding that, among other things, kind of outlined shared library services. And so it was kind of abruptly announced in April of 2023 that the university and the junior college were going to dissolve this agreement. So, what does that mean for us? Well, um, it was going to mean that our in-person library services were going to be significantly reduced for our students on the Rio Grande College campuses, because through that agreement, the Southwest Texas Junior College libraries on each campus were providing our students access to their collections and resources, and they were serving as the pickup hubs for ILL and materials sent from our own holdings from the library in Alpine. And so we did kind of, at this point in time, historically, have had sort of a foundational system where we were mailing our own materials and interlibrary loan physical materials to students, staff, and faculty on the Rio Grande College campuses on each campus through the Southwest Texas Junior College libraries. And so a request would come in, we would process it, and we would send it to one of the hubs, one of the libraries on each campus for the students to pick up, and that was their only option. So what was the solution that we came up to in the 4 or 5 months we had before the dissolution of the agreement? Well, we very rapidly decided that what we were going to do was open up a physical library branch on the Eagle Pass campus, which is where I'm currently based. That was an easy decision because I was interested in moving a little bit closer to home, and so I really welcomed the opportunity. So we didn't really have to look around for someone who was willing to move, nor did we have to hire a new person. Through that decision, of course, we were going to promote, enhance, and evolve library services across the RGC campuses. Now, two major components there were, number one, to start to slowly develop a physical book collection here in Eagle Pass, and two, to implement a new service to mail books and ILL materials directly to students, staff, and faculty across the 3 campuses. So here we enter the direct mail program. So it was decided that, in the meetings that we had with faculty and staff, as we were working on developing what library services to the RGC campuses would look like, that faculty and staff really indicated a desire for equity of access to library resources and services. So we decided that one of our key things that we would focus on was to improve access to our physical collections. Now, through direct mail, of course, through that process, we'd start mailing materials from our own holdings in addition to interlibrary loan. So now, what are another problem that that our students, staff, and faculty on the RGC campuses face is that they really do have, in this area, limited access to alternatives, either through local public libraries or our statewide reciprocal borrowing program. We have a program here called TechShare, in which participating libraries can issue library TechShare cards that patrons can use to borrow materials from participating libraries across the state. So in that way, the students can borrow books through their local public library, through any participating college libraries. But in this area, options are limited because, of course, the two options are local public libraries in Uvalde, Del Rio, and Eagle Pass, or the Southwest Texas Junior College campuses, or the libraries. And so, in talking to the local public libraries, and I understand that in public libraries, this is kind of a standard thing, but many of the libraries in the area could not offer the same level of service that we could for fulfilling interlibrary loan requests. In addition, in most cases, the libraries also charged for interlibrary loan to kind of offset the costs of shipping. And so the direct mail pilot program really kind of developed from kind of the policies and procedures that we had developed during our arrangement with the junior college. That is, the foundational structure sort of already existed, right? We were taking interlibrary loan materials, we were processing them, and we were shipping them to the campuses using the USPS. And from that, we built toward direct mail. So what was traditionally some of the issues that we were encountering on the Rio Grande College campuses? Well, faculty, staff, and students had limited ways to request books from the Alpine campus. Historically, the process was not very accessible for students. In fact, most requests for books came in actually as ILL requests, and I neglected to mention that that we are a TPASA library, and of course, the Southwest Texas Junior College Library served as the pickup and drop-off hubs on each campus location. So now you might ask, well, why were these requests coming in? Why were these book requests coming in as ILL requests? Well, we use Symphony as our Circe Dynix Symphony as our ILS, and EBSCO Discovery Service as our discovery interface. And so, we, especially because our circulation numbers in general aren't extremely high, we don't really take advantage of the holds function in our ILS, not to mention the fact that there isn't a lot of great integration between the holds function in Symphony and, of course, EBSCO Discovery Service. And so, students were a little confused. Students on the Rio Grande College campuses were a little confused as to how they would go about requesting materials from the library in Alpine. And so one of the changes that we had implemented up prior to the dissolution of the MOU and the development of direct mail was implementing very simple request for pickup. It later became request for pickup delivery button in our discovery interface as a custom link in EDS, if you're familiar. And so these links appear in the records for our physical materials, and they simply take students to a form that we created in LibWizard. And I'll show you what that looks like on the next slide. And of course, we began working on solutions building from some of these recent positive changes to begin mailing materials directly to our patrons. So here's an example. You can see here what a record looks like in EDS, the options there, and the request pickup delivery, which at that time was just request for it was request for pickup, and then we made it request for pickup or delivery. It's a LibWizard form. The students entered their contact information. Some of the information about the item is passed over through OpenURL. And I didn't include the bottom part of the form here, I noticed, but the bottom part of the form is basically where the student indicates where they will be picking up their materials on each campus. And so that the option is, if you're on the Alpine campus, you would pick it up from the library in person. And if you were on any of the Sul Ross campuses in Eagle Pass, Del Rio, or Uvalde, you would indicate which campus hub you were picking up from. Now, during the initial deployment of the request pickup delivery button, we were using this form to make it a little bit easier for students to select materials for pickup on the Southwest Texas Junior College campuses. So their initial options were the Alpine campus or the hubs on the RGC campuses. It would only become later that we opened it up so that they could request items to be delivered directly to them. So, and this is going to sound like a joke, but so we needed an affordable, quick, and trackable way to send and receive packages, right? So we decided to pursue options available through the USPS. And so we decided very, very early on that USPS would be the best solution for our particular implementation. In Alpine, we do not have a physical FedEx or UPS store. And our campus mailing office is considered an arm of the USPS. And so, working with our campus post office and our local post office became the best solution for our own needs. It was much easier to kind of sort through the options and to talk to people in person, which can be very helpful when you're setting up the logistics of mailing things to folks. And so, what were the options that we pursued through USPS? Well, we kind of settled on 3 options: business reply mail, the USPS return service, and I'll talk a little bit about these services. And the third option, which was simply, prepaid library mail rate return labels. That is to purchase postage a second time to send with the package. And so a lot of us are kind of familiar with business reply mail, right? The way it works is that and this is mainly used by businesses and organizations to send mail with prepaid return envelopes. You've seen these in magazines. You've seen these in junk mail. The idea is when you've sent a business reply mail package or envelope out, whoever has the addressee can take that envelope, place what needs to be returned in the envelope, and send it back. Now, with business reply mail, the pro there really is that you only pay for items that are returned. It doesn't cost you anything to print out business reply mail envelopes or labels. But the big con here is that there really wasn't any tracking available through business reply mail, at least for our purposes. I believe that USPS does offer some tracking options available through business reply when it comes to like envelopes. But we were having issues with larger packages. So, the types of packages that that were kind of standard for shipping out books. When it comes to costs with business reply mail, you're kind of looking at a few different costs here. To set up business reply mail through the USPS, you have to pay for an annual permit, which I believe is $250. You pay per item postage plus an additional handling fee. So it's not a very cost-effective option, and it's really not well suited for mailing packages. It really is intended for flat items, envelopes, paper, things like that. Now, we did experiment with sending business reply with using business reply labels to return materials. We sent some of our own materials back and forth between campuses, and it was working. And we were experiencing, a pretty acceptable turnaround time of about 5 days through business reply mail. But when it comes to mailing library materials, whether it be through, whether it be interlibrary loan materials or your own materials, you really can't get away with not having tracking. That's just, you really can't. It would be pandemonium if you tried to run a program like this without tracking. So what was the next solution? Now, this is going to be a very interesting solution if you aren't aware. USPS offers a service which they call USPS Returns. Now, this is a very flexible service for our patrons. It has reliable tracking built in, and the way it works is very similar to this service is kind of designed with providing businesses with a way of providing returns for materials. So it's very much similar to what you might be accustomed to when returning items through Amazon or any other large retailer. And the way it works is it's a little bit more involved. You have to enroll in the service. There are no upfront costs. It's a free service that USPS offers. You have to create several accounts, a USPS Business Customer Gateway account. You have to create a separate account that is used to fund your postage. And once you've enrolled in the program, it's actually fairly easy to use once you've enrolled. The hardest part actually was enrolling because you have to set up an appointment with a USPS customer representative. Everyone I spoke to at USPS was telling me, how complicated the process is. But once we got through that, it was very flexible. So the way it works is that USPS provides you with a link that you can use to generate a return label. Now, they also offer several different tools that you can, including, I believe, API access that you could use to kind of build your own tool. And so you could also give your patrons the option of submitting a return request themselves. And the way it works is that you use this link to generate a return label. You input the return address or the mailing address. And much like business reply mail, and I really wish I had included some images of what these labels look like, but the way it works is that these labels look pretty much exactly like the return labels that you see when you when you request a return through like Amazon. It includes instructions. It includes the tracking label. It includes a very handy QR code that patrons can use to either schedule pickup or to find the nearest post office to drop off the material. And when it comes to USPS returns, what you're looking at is, as far as costs go, per item postage, based on weight, distance, and service. So it's kind of standard. And you have a few options available, including priority mail and first class mail. So USPS returns was a very interesting option. And we were really considering it just because of how flexible it is. And ultimately, we decided after consulting with our mailing office and consulting with our postmaster at the post office, we decided that we would try and pursue the cheapest, most reliable option. And so what we ultimately decided on was to basically, purchase prepaid postage in the form of a return label. And so what are the pros here? Well, it's cheaper than the other mail options because we can use library mail rate for these return labels. And as I'm sure all of you are aware, library mail rate is great because it's a fixed cost based on weight. And so it's cheaper than all of the mail options, but it does have a a big caveat here, and the caveat is that we pay for the postage regardless of whether it is used. And so, you pay for that postage. If a patron decides not to return an item or to return an item on campus in person, we're out that postage. There really isn't anything we can do about that. Now, what are some ways that we kind of try to mitigate those types of issues? Well, when it comes to, we have found that when it comes to successfully implementing a service like this, it is extremely important to be as clear as possible with your patrons about the process. And so we developed a number of inserts and instructions to make the process as easy and approachable as possible. I don't think I really have to say that, good instructions are really important to ensuring that you actually get materials back. Otherwise, you'll just end up in just a swamp of potential issues. And so what did we do? Well, I think I forgot to mention that just before I get into this, I'll mention that our interlibrary loan department is actually larger than it ever has been historically. Well, not historically, but in the last 3 or 4 years, we are at 3 people: myself and 2 full-time library assistants, one on the Alpine campus and one here with me in Eagle Pass. Now, like myself, they are not full-time interlibrary loan assistants, but wear many hats. And so our library assistant in Alpine, her name is Taylor Moore, really helped out by developing all of the inserts, creating all of the inserts and instructions for our patrons. So, number one, each package, the way that we decided that this was going to be done is that we were going to take all of our instructions and inserts and postage and include them in an envelope with the package. So each package comes with a sealed envelope with this sticker on the front. The envelope is placed on top of the materials when it's shipped out, so it's the first thing that is seen when the package is open, hopefully from the top. So you've got the open first sticker. Now we have these instruction inserts, which are printed on cardstock front and back. You can see here that Taylor really did a really great job on breaking down the instructions in a very easily digestible way. Ready to return? Follow these steps. We make it very clear that it's important that the students reuse the same packing materials. Now, why is that? Well, there really wouldn't be a problem if the package weighed a little bit less. However, if the package ended up weighing a little bit more than the initial return postage, you can see where there might be some problems where a patron may be required to pay additional postage if they really loaded up their return package. So we make it very clear that they must reuse the same packing materials. Not only that, but we want to ensure that they are properly packing the materials. So by reusing the materials that we provided, we can ensure that our materials are returned in a great condition. And so, 2, right? They take the enclosed return label, the prepaid postage, and the tracking label, and they attach it to the front of the package, cover or remove any old labels. 3, drop the package off into any USPS mailbox, or any mailbox rather, and deliver to your local post office for return, or deliver to your local post office return. So of course they have 2 options. They can drop it off they can put it in their mailbox, pull up the flag, and the postman will come and take it away, or they can drop it off in person. The front of that, you can see, basically just has a list of everything enclosed in the envelope. The checkout information, return instructions, the return label, the prepaid postage, and the tracking label. And we'll break this down on the next slide. Now these are all printed on 8.5 by 11 cardstock. We get these in packs of 250. They're about $12 from Office Max. The envelopes we get also from Office Max. They're 6x9, $15 for a pack of 100. We're talking about maybe about 15 cents a use. The Open First sticker and the address and return labels we print on Avery labels. So we use 5164 labels. We get those in a box of 600, about $30. We use about 3 of them. So you can see that the cost of materials, while we've kind of splurged on the design, we use color and everything like that, the cost of materials is relatively low, and we're fairly sustainable when it comes to packing materials. So that's not really an issue for us. We also include this very handy diagram, which shows the students what the package should look like when it's properly packed up, which is very important. Because it's very important to ensure that everything is placed where it needs to be, so that the package arrives as it's supposed to. Right, the USPS is very anal about ensuring that all previous labels are covered, and they don't even want marker to be used. They would really prefer that you cover it up with paper or something like that. And so we've got those inserts. We also include this postage backing where we kind of tape the return postage too, so it's not sitting around there as well. So we'll kind of break down what it looks like as far as putting everything together, right? So number 1, request is received, submitted, and processed according to our ILL policies and procedures. Pretty standard. So we receive a request from a student. We identify them based on their location. In the TPASA ILL form, students who want to request an item through direct mail are given the same options that they're given in the request for pickup delivery form, the LibWizard form. And so they are able to specify, number 1, if they would like to pick it up on campus, on the Eagle Pass, Del Rio, or Uvalde campuses, or number 2, if they'd like to request it for home delivery. And based on that information, we proceed in processing the requests. Now, throughout this process, the patron is contacted 3 times. Number 1, to confirm the shipping information that they've provided in the in the TPASA form. Again, when the material is shipped out, and we also include the tracking information for the outgoing package, so they can track it along. And 3, when we have when the item has been marked as delivered, to confirm that they've received the package. They also are notified when about a week before the due date to remind them to either request a renewal or prepare to return their materials. So the supplies are gathered. 2 USPS tracking labels that we use. For those of you that use USPS for mailing your materials, you might you could probably commiserate with me in that it became a little bit harder to get these tracking labels a few years ago, when you used to be able to order these labels directly from the post office online. But at some point, they decided that they were only going to offer these tracking labels to like USPS business customers. And so we were fortunate in that, because our campus post office has a postage scale, that we're able to get the tracking labels through their business account. It's a Pitney Bowes machine. One of the envelopes, the Open First sticker, the request insert with the return instructions, the diagram, and the postage backing card. Then we create the outgoing return address, the outgoing and return address labels, which we print on the Avery stickers. And then we assemble the package. We place the open first sticker on the front of the envelope. We add the insert, the diagram, the return tracking label, and the return address label. We prepare the package according to our policies and procedures. In most cases, we're using either very small boxes or padded envelopes. And here's where the process gets a little complicated. Because we don't have our own postage scale at the library, we have to take the package to our post office and purchase the return postage from them. You might also know that, of course, when you're purchasing, a library or media mail postage through the USPS, this needs to be done in person. And so once we've purchased the return postage, we add the return postage, the envelope, and seal the package for shipping and ship it out. We include the postage price in a tracking sheet. We track all of our postage expenditures in Excel. And then, of course, we notify the patron that the package has shipped. So let's take a look at some statistics. What are we looking at as far as average cost per package? Well, it's a little bit easier to calculate because of the fixed rate nature of library mail rate. So we're looking at about $10.64 as an average cost per package. This doesn't factor in the cost of the shipping materials or our inserts, but you can expect to maybe add about 50 cents per package based on our current usage. Now, I'll say that we've seen a very significant increase in physical loans over the previous year. It's about 85%. Now, this is certainly a pilot program, and historically, our interlibrary loan requests that we had been receiving from the Sul Ross campuses in Eagle Pass, Del Rio, and Uvalde have been historically pretty low. And so we're certainly building up our program here, and our presence has definitely led to a general increase in interlibrary loan requests, physical interlibrary loan requests. And so that number 2 years ago maybe was about 5 or 6 lens a year, and it steadily kind of increased to about 30 when we implemented the link in our discovery service. Now has increased kind of pretty steadily from that 2025 to about 50, 55 a year. So over the last year, we've lent about maybe 55 physical materials through ILL, which of course, doesn't sound like a lot, but when we're talking about about an FTE of about 600 students in this area, it's fairly decent, and we can expect to see more usage as we kind of continue to develop the program and get students familiar with interlibrary loan on these campuses. So what are some lessons learned? Well, the first two kind of go hand in hand. Clear communication with patrons is essential, and simplified processes increase accessibility. We saw just a great increase in usage when we implemented the custom link in our discovery service, making it easier for students to request materials for delivery. The entire process, I'd like to think, as it stands, with requesting materials through the ILL form, the package that they receive, and the communication that is involved between us and our patrons has really kind of simplified the process as far as it can possibly go. And so really, this seems obvious, but a program like this at any scale will not work unless there is clear lines of communication between the library and its patrons and your partner libraries that you're borrowing from. Now, cost management is a challenge. There's no way around. It's how expensive it is to ship materials out. We're all kind of familiar with this. We're talking about $10 to $11 a package here. You can see if you do a little bit of math in your head that even scaled, double or three times that in a year we ended up spending a little over $650 this year on just shipping materials out, return postage and outgoing postage. If we got double that, would be $1,200, which is it's a pretty penny. And of course, flexibility is key. There are going to be, if you're interested in implementing similar services, you're going to have to be pretty flexible about your options. We have a very unique circumstance in that, our remote students are dispersed across 3 campuses. Our distance education students, our distance education program is fairly small, and most of our students are located in Texas or either in San Antonio or Austin. And so we're not shipping materials halfway across the country. But I think with these kind of foundations, that definitely something like this can be scaled to any level. And so I'll definitely take questions now, if there are any. Again, my name is Mike Fernandez. You can see my contact info there. If you're really interested in learning a little bit more, I'll try to answer any questions that have come up. But if you're really interested in learning a little bit more about our process, if there's anything that I didn't share that you'd like to know more about, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk about our experiences in more detail. So with that,
does anyone in person have a question?
Hi. I had 2 questions. My name's Paul. I'm from OHSU. First, would you be able to or willing to share that template you use for the instructions? I'm already thinking of adopting it, and
wonderful.
why reinvent the wheel? Like, that looks great.
I would be happy to. I will definitely double check with our library assistants, but we would be happy to share it. I'm glad that you think it's a great template. And you're absolutely right. Why reinvent the wheel? I think we really, through the kind of design process, I think we really did end up with, a very clean and efficient way of packaging these materials. So I'd be more than willing to share that with you.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and I definitely, you have my contact info, so please do reach out, and I would be more than willing to share all of our templates with you.
Hi, Mike. This is Lori Hildebrand with the Orbis Cascade Alliance. I was just wondering if people don't use their return labels, but they come back inside of the books, can you rematch them with an appropriate weight for using again in a different book?
Well, we certainly can, right? So here's a situation that has actually occurred a few times with a few patrons. So we have a few patrons, or we have a patron that is more comfortable with returning things in person. And there have been instances where they've come to return the books but have discarded the packaging, which we're kind of out of luck, right? So we've made it we've tried to make it clear that it's really important that that they retain the postage, so that if they desire to return or they're just more comfortable with returning things in person, they're more than free to do so, but they have to bring the entire package so that we can we can return the book using that postage. Now, we could also just, you're right, we could also just use the post. If we just had the postage without the book, we can certainly kind of create a package that that is of a similar weight. It's prepaid postage. It's not tied to any particular size. It's really just a matter of making sure that your weight does not exceed what we paid for. So as long as you're under that limit, it's fair game.
Okay.